Hi there. Today we are moving on to our next project. So we just finished learning about one-point perspective as it relates to simple shapes. We're going to do something very similar, but instead of simple shapes, we're going to make our shapes a little more complicated, and we're going to go with a word. Now, a good word to use for this would be your name, but if your name is really long, too many letters, then you might want to go with a positive word, or your middle name or your nickname. The requirement here is that you need to have at least 5 letters. 5 letters. If you end up with more than that, then that's fine. But 5 is the perfect number. 6 is also a really good number. And so if you can find a word or your name that is 5 or 6 letters or close to that, then that's going to be a good thing to use. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is show you my thought processes when it comes to lettering. So we're going to talk about lettering today. This is kind of going to be my rough draft. This paper right here is a little bit smaller than the paper that I'm going to be working with as far as the width of it, but it's close enough. Now, the first thing you have to figure out is, what is your word? So if I'm going to go with my name, this could be Miss Cardenas or Mrs. Cox. So when we are drawing this out and I'm looking at my letters, I need to figure out how much space I need for each of these letters so that you don't end up with big letters at the beginning and then they get smashed at the end because you run out of space. We're going to map them out beforehand so that that doesn't happen. If you have smashed letters, it's going to make the perspective aspect of this really difficult. So if I'm making mine like this, my M is really wide, my R is kind of small, my S is kind of small, the period is tiny, and then I have a C, which is also pretty big. So if I was going to map out each of my letters and come up with a spacing for each letter, I need a big space for the M, small, small, tiny, and big again. So on my paper, for this word, if this was the space I'm trying to fill in, yeah, that's pretty close, then I need a big space over here for my M. So I'm going to put my M all the way at the side. And then I know I need another big space for the C. So something else you can do is start with the 2 ends. So I know my C needs a big space and my M needs a big space. So now I have 2 spaces for my M and my C, so I know they will fit. Now this is my leftover for me to fit my 2 smalls and my tiny. All right, I'm going to make these letters shorter. So if my R can fit in here and my S can fit in here, then that means my period can fit right in there perfectly. So this is good spacing for your letters. Let's look at another name, my first name. I've got 6 letters in my first name. So another thing that you can do when you're mapping out your letters is think about how many spaces you need. So if I were to draw a line in between each of my letters to count my spaces, I need 6 spaces because I have 6 letters. So you might notice that because it's 3 on one side, 3 on the other, I could just divide this in half. All right, so that's about half. And now I know I need to fit 3 over here and 3 over here. So let's make my rectangles all about the same. So there's one there, there's one there, and then, okay, there we go. 3 on this side, 3 on that side. When you are writing your letters, and another way to do this, if you have 6 letters in your name, is to start with the middle letter and then work your way out. So lots of different ways to map it out, but if you come up with your letters beforehand and you map them out on a rough draft, then you can make sure that you will be able to fit them in just right. I always like to give myself a line for the top and a line for the bottom so that my letters are all the same size and I don't end up with some tiny letters and some really giant letters, because that's always awkward. There we go. I didn't make these too fancy, I just wanted to show you how I space these out. So this one right here, I would make it about like this. Boom. All right, this is the one I'm going to go with. So here's my final paper. I know exactly how much space I'm going to need for each of these because I already mapped it out on here. So on your final paper. You will need a horizon line. I'm gonna put mine way down at the bottom because I'm gonna put my whole name up above the horizon line so that it ends up being like these shapes here where they look like they're way up above us. You could do yours the opposite and put your name down below. That is fine too. If you wanna put your name on the horizon line like this one, then that's just gonna be a little bit more challenging when we get to the perspective part of it. So here is my horizon line. Your vanishing point can go right in the center if you want, or it might be more interesting to put your horizon line off to the side. That's kind of fun. I'm gonna put mine in the middle just so that things aren't extra complicated, just make it more simple. Now my name, I don't wanna put it too close to the horizon line. Do not set your name directly on the horizon line, or this is going to be a very complicated project for you. Don't make it too complicated. Let your name be up a little bit higher up above the horizon line. So I'm gonna put a really light line here. That's the line that I'm gonna set my letters on. And I'm gonna write them out so that they're about this size. I write small to start with. I'm not starting with block letters. I'm starting by just writing my name. You may notice on this paper right here that on the inside of the words, you can see a line where I just wrote it. That's what I'm starting with. That's how I always like to start these. Leave plenty of space in between your letters so that you have plenty of room to be able to make them into block letters. There we go. After you've written them out, now I'm going to draw a line around my line. What that means is, here's my A. I'm going to draw a line around the A that never touches the A on the inside. So let's work on this one. So the bottom is going to be a straight line. I'm going to draw a line around my M. Travels all the way around and never touches it. And you're doing this to each and every one of your letters. Take your time with it. We're actually not even going to start the perspective part until next week. So do a nice job of making some really clear letters that are easy to see, that are not too smashed together. Leave a space so that you've got, I don't know, 2 or 3 fingers away from your vanishing point would be a good place to be. If it's too close to the vanishing point, then you may want to start over. Bam. There's my name. Now I'm ready for the perspective part. Erasing the line on the inside is another thing you can do to make it look really nice. So I'm going to erase my guidelines. That's why I made them really light. So practice your lettering. Come up with some interesting ways to make your letters bubble or block or some other fancy way you want to do it is fine. But simple is going to be a little bit more easy.